I don't want you to think for 1 second that I don't believe reading is important. I think readers can become leaders, and I think all leaders should be readers. I think reading can expand our mind, it can sharpen our thinking, it gives us wisdom beyond our years, it gives us experience that we couldn't have had otherwise, or maybe even experience that we can gain through reading someone else's story and thereby not having to go through the school of hard knocks like they did to get that experience. I think I remember Andrew Luck, former quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. When he was here in Indianapolis, he was on an NPR program once, and he was promoting reading among young people. And he said something interesting. It was, and I'll paraphrase, we only have one life to live, so let's live 1,000 more by reading. And what he meant was, you read stories about people, you read biographies, you read history, you read science, technology, philosophy, the Bible, and many other genres, and you experience those lives and those minds and those concepts while you're living your one life. So it's a way of compressing all this knowledge and experience into your life. Thereby, we are enriched when we read. But I do think that it's possible that we can read ourselves silly. And let me explain what I mean. It's possible to burn through 50 books in a year. If a person does that, that's a wonderful task. It's a great goal, and I would commend that person. But I would always want to know how much was retained, how much was assimilated, and how much was applied to the life of that person. I have a friend, a dear friend, and this person was on a rampage to read 50 books a year and then 100 books a year, which is incredible, just the discipline. If for no other reason, it was an exercise in discipline and self-control to be able to say no to a Netflix show, but yes to a book, or no to doom scrolling, but yes to a book. So it's incredible, almost insurmountable for most of us. But I remember one time speaking with this person, knowing that this person was a voracious reader, and we were talking about a book that was a little controversial, and this person had some opinions about that book. And I thought, great, I'm in good company. I'm going to learn something. So I asked this person, I know there's a lot going on about this book, and I actually read the book myself. And so I asked this person, hey, what are your thoughts on the book? And the person, had several negative things to say. And so then I asked a couple of probing questions. And as it turned out, this person had never actually read the book, but yet was speaking authoritatively about that book. And so it is possible for us to read ourselves silly, to burn through the pages, burn through the words, to check our box and to accomplish our goals, but not really saturate ourselves in the understanding of the book. There was another occasion when I remember a leader that I knew, and I won't mention any names, but this person is kind of known for some faux pas here and there. But this person was giving a book review in the presence of other leaders, and it turned out that he was doing book reviews, and he was talking about 3 separate books, and he actually has never read those books when he was probed a little bit further. And there was no animosity in the room. There was not a gotcha moment. It was just curious minds wanting to know, hey, can you tell me a little bit more than just the title and the author and where I can buy this? And as it turned out, the person had never read the book. And so this is not to be harsh or critical, but it's just to call out there are dangers in sort of seeming like we're readers or seeming like we are hungry for knowledge, but not really learning the material, not really assimilating. Now, is it possible that we learn and assimilate everything that we read every time without exception? Of course not. I think that there's also benefit to just reading something for enjoyment or for relaxation or to see if you're interested in a certain topic. I'm not going to become a student of biology, but I actually enjoy a biology book once in a while. You would enjoy looking up and learning about a gentleman named Richard Feynman. Richard Feynman was a theoretical physicist. He was a quantum mechanics expert, and he was also expert in quantum electrodynamics. I'm not even sure if I can spell those things. But as his history unfolded, he would go to class when he was a student and take decent notes, but not copious word-for-word notes trying to memorize formulas and memorize rote knowledge that some of his peers were doing. And then he would go back to his dorm room or a library and just sit with a blank page or a blank notebook and try to recreate the lecture, try to re-explain to himself and then rewrite the concepts and the principles and the facts and work out theories and formulas on the paper. And he believed that if you couldn't listen to a subject and then study the subject and then repeat back at various levels, at very elementary stages all the way up through PhD levels, then you really didn't understand the material. Now that's probably an extreme case, and it's definitely the exception more than the norm. But I can tell you from personal experience that every time I've tried to do at least that exercise, I'm nowhere near the expert in anything that Richard Feynman was, but it is immensely helpful, and it grew my knowledge. As small as my knowledge is, it grew it exponentially. And so that would be my challenge. Let's read as many books as we can get our hands on, but let's also learn exactly what those books were saying. Let's learn as many verses as we can of the Bible, your favorite books, your favorite stories, your favorite passages, but more than just learning the words like the scribes learned the words that were ultimately painted sepulchres. Let's apply the knowledge. Let's make our copies. Let's take our notes, but let's sit and meditate and take that knowledge that's in our minds, in our souls, in our spirits, and apply it to paper and apply it to conversation with our friends and family. Apply it to our lifestyle and apply it to how we behave. So here's my challenge, whether we're reading a book or listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video, we really need to ask ourselves this question. Can I explain this? Can I reproduce this content? Can I summarize it in a way that a friend or a loved one or a coworker could understand and at least be engaged in the subject matter because of my newfound knowledge? We need to ask ourselves, can I connect this to something else I know? Can I apply this knowledge of physics to my job? Or can I take this principle of the medical sciences or of philosophy or just of the history of George Washington? What can I learn from Theodore Roosevelt and then make it a practice to use some of the knowledge and experience that these people are sharing on these pages, put it into action in our lives, and thereby be enriched by it? Can I actually use the knowledge? Can I use the information that I'm just plowing through? Here's my challenge. Read like crazy. Don't stop there, though. Write, summarize, teach it back to yourself. Keep a notebook and force clarity. And let's stay away from reading ourselves silly.